Hey guys, Darth Glurk here, back with another positive anime review. Today we will be talking about Darling in the Franxx. And I'm just gonna not second guess myself for a change on how you pronounce the name of it. That's just what we're gonna go with, is Darling in the Franxx. So this is actually one of those animes that has the same name in the English and Japanese. That's just the name. So the good news is I'm not gonna have to have the Japanese name in the description, and so that makes things easier for me. Anyway. So, it's been a long time since my last par review. I am drinking, as always. I have a wild cherry flavored water with me. And, I am drinking. It's delicious. So, it's been a long time since we did a par review. And so, gonna be honest, a little bit nervous. But I'm hoping it's a lot like riding a bike. And, I will just kind of go through the motions and I will remember. Anyway, here's hoping. So, I felt like there was something else I was gonna warn. Oh, I must warn you in advance. I am really tired today. I've been sleeping like crap the last couple of days. I didn't get enough sleep, and then work today was tiring, exhausting, and insanely irritating. So did not have a fantastic day at work, and so I am tired. And it was a harder day, like physically harder than it's been in a while, and so. It's been kind of a perfect storm, so I'm really tired today, so I might not be as hyped as I sometimes am, or at least as often as I try to be. So, yeah, I'm really sore, so I am hoping here that it'll be fine content anyway. Anyway, so let's go ahead and hop right into it. Luckily, I have my little cheat sheet in front of me, and I'm actually going to super duper need it for this one, because like I said, it's been a long time. It's been 6 months since my last positive anime review, so, you know, here's hoping that it's a lot like riding a bike. Let's take one drink for the road, and then let's hop into it. Alright, so obviously, reviewing Darling in the Franxx. When did this anime air? This is from the, wait for it, Winter 2018 season. Now, this is one that is very, very well known. It is one that a lot of people were very, very excited for, and it was very popular, from what I understand. It did very, very well, and it was very, very popular, and I can see why. Is there a dub? I believe there is a dub for this one, but don't quote me, but it is licensed by Funimation, and from what I can tell, it seems like most Funimation, anything licensed by Funimation tends to have a dub. So I think there's a dub. As usual, don't just take my word for it. I couldn't tell you how the dub is because I did not watch it. But anyway, and so I watch sub. Now I don't have a problem with dub. I mean, I personally don't love dub most of the time. There are a few dubbed anime that are very, very good, but I don't fault anyone for liking it. And so if you like it, that's great. Anyway, is this an adaptation from a manga? It does not look like it. It does not look like that this is an adaptation from a manga. And now we can just kind of hop into the synopsis of, like, what is the anime about? That is maybe you heard the name, or that it was so big that you didn't, but it was huge, maybe you didn't feel like jumping on the train, but you finally decided to maybe you're thinking about giving it a watch. So let's go ahead and hop into the synopsis. It is the best way to sum up any anime, and it's a lot easier than listening to me. Anyway, in the distant future, humanity has been driven to near extinction by giant beasts known as Klaxosaurs. Forcing the surviving humans to take refuge in massive fortress cities called plantations, children raised here are trained to pilot giant mechas known as FranXX, the only weapons known to be effective against the Klaxosaurs in boy-girl pairs. Bred for the sole purpose of piloting these machines, these children know nothing of the outside world and are only able to prove their existence by defending their race. Hiro, an aspiring FranXX pilot, has lost his motivation and self-confidence after failing an aptitude test. Skipping out on his class's graduation ceremony, Hiro retreats to a forest lake where he encounters a mysterious girl with two horns growing out of her head. She introduces herself by her code name 02, which is known to belong to an infamous FranXX pilot known as the Partner Killer. Before Hiro can digest the encounter, the plantation is rocked by a sudden Klaxosaur attack. 02 engages the creature in her FranXX, but is heavily damaged in the skirmish and crashes near Hiro. Finding her partner dead, 02 invites Hiro to pilot the mecha with her, and the duo easily defeats the Klaxosaur in the ensuing fight. With a new partner by his side, Hiro has been given a chance at redemption for his past failures, but at what cost? So, very cool anime. Now, this is actually an interesting one for me, because obviously this technically does have a mecha tag, and that is surprising, because I, by and large, am not a huge mecha anime fan. Now, mecha is kind of a staple of the anime community, and it's been popular a very long time. I don't know. I've always had problems getting into mecha anime. I don't know why. I just I just have. But this is a mecha anime, and obviously, as you can tell by the title, this is called positive anime reviews and not so positive anime reviews. So because just the name already, you know that it's gonna be given a good score, and so obviously that this one is obviously good. So, rating. Moving on to our next section of rating. How clean or dirty is the anime? So, this anime is definitely, I would give it a PG-13. It's what the site gives it, and I would definitely agree. There is some, it's very light. It's very light. It's really not a big deal. I would definitely give it a PG-13 because there is some near nudity and and stuff like that occasionally, but it doesn't show anything. It doesn't show anything, and it's not very intensive. There's not really all that crazy with language. Sometimes the violence can get kind of intense. It really depends on how thick-skinned you are, really. But I guess but for me, it doesn't. None of that bothers me even in the slightest. But I would definitely give it a PG-13, which is good, right? Because if it's PG-13, then that means there's at least a shot that it's going to be actually interesting. A lot of the kids anime, when it's dumbed down just to be on a kid's level, is often, I can tell, and I don't find it interesting. Because I can tell that they're specific. It feels like a lot of shows it feels like they're specifically pulling punches because it is supposed to be marketed to kids or whatever, and I don't like that. I don't like feeling like it's being dumbed down to or censored or they're reining back because they have a kid audience or whatever. I never have liked that. So if it's PG-13, then that means there's a shot of it actually being good. And of course, there's exceptions to the rule, but like I said, I'm tired today, and so my normal filter is non-existent, and so my filter is already tired. So I just say I will probably my mouth will probably outpace my brain for the duration of this video, probably for the next one too. Anyway, so genre. Moving on to genres. Obviously mecha, but it's action, drama, romance, and sci-fi. So there is romance. Romance is probably I would say probably the biggest plot point of this. This is a romance anime, and it's fantastic. So if you are a romance nerd in anime, like I am, then obviously this is good news for you. So season length, how long is this season? This is actually a little bit on the longer side with 24 episodes. Each episode sits around 24 minutes, and so pretty standard stuff, but it is on the slightly longer side at 24 episodes. The pacing is really, really good. It never feels like that they're just filling air or just killing time to me. It always felt like that, that I think it's the perfect length for it, because it didn't feel like at any point they were stretching things out on purpose to make things seem longer. It also didn't feel like that they had to rush or anything, and so it was a great length. But this is one of those... Oops, sorry, y'all, I forgot to silence my phone. Anyway, this is one of those anime that does have something after the theme song, especially in the later half of the season. And so after the theme song is over, stick around, because and especially the later it goes, the more stuff they had to cover. And so there is stuff after the closing song, so stick around. Anyway, moving on to our character section. So the characters, there is quite a few characters in this, and so this is actually one that... our character section is probably going to be fairly long, because there is a group of characters, but it's about the whole group is really the issue here. And so we're going to cover all of the main characters, and we're not going to spend too long because of the sheer amount, and considering that they are all technically main characters, right? So this will be the first anime that this will be the first par review that I had to use the new my new editing program on, and so I'm not sure how easy or difficult editing is going to be with the new software for the par reviews, and so I don't know. So I don't know what it's going to look like, but here's hoping that it looks decent is basically what I'm trying to say. So let's go ahead and hop into our main characters now. I have talked about this in my previous ones, but it's been so long I feel the need to say it again. I feel like the characters, whether they're called a main character or a supporting character, it's very much a spectrum. And so definitely some characters, even though they're all main characters, technically, some of them are more main character than other ones, right? I always feel like there's kind of an alpha main character versus, it's definitely a spectrum. So we'll cover the biggest, baddest, most important main characters first, and then we'll just, in no particular order, hit the rest of them. So Moving on to our very first, and I would say alpha main character, we have Hero. So obviously Hero, I feel like, is the main character. And Hero is he's interesting. He's very one-track mind, and so obviously because these kids, their existence is like validated, or their worth is proven by their ability to pilot these FranXX, these giant machines. And so Hero has lost his confidence and his ability to do it, and so for him, he's super worried that obviously for him it's a lot like being like, I'm worth absolutely nothing if I don't find a way to pilot the FranXX, right? And so for him, he's having this crisis, and so he's very one-track mind, because there's lots of plot that obviously revolves around him, and backstory that gets revealed, that reveals a lot more about his personality and why he is the way he is, and I think it makes him in much more likable after you know specific reasons of his personality. But Hero is very one-track minded. Now, he is likable, and he is a good guy, and genuinely, really deep down, he really cares about his circle of friends, and he does value them a great deal. But for Hero, I feel like his number one concern, his number one goal is to his number one goal is to get back his confidence, get back his ability, so that he can pilot once again. And then after he meets Zero Two, and we will get to her in a second. After he meets Zero Two, his number one goal is to take care of her, and then his secondary goal is to be able to pilot. They definitely go hand in hand. But after the backstory gets revealed, he's even more likable than previously, I think. Now, there is, as far as like flaws in his personality, that the problem with his one-track mind, where he tends to super focus on piloting, he super focuses on Zero Two, is that sometimes he can put others by the wayside in his desire to stick to them, obviously he's focusing on wanting to pilot. He's focusing on Zero Two. So other friends of his sometimes can feel like they get thrown by the wayside because they are not Zero Two and they're not piloting. So if there was any flaws in his personality, that would definitely be a weakness of his. But he's very likable. I mean, especially like I said, when backstory gets revealed, a lot more is revealed about him, and you suddenly have a lot more. Compassion for him. But something that is interesting about Hero is I'm really having a hard time thinking. I'm so stinking tired. It's so hard to think. All of these kids are in a very high stress situations, obviously. Very high stress situations all the time. And so because of their super high stress, it's weird because it goes hand in hand that they're not really taught about lots of things. Lots of very basic things are not taught to them. And so a lot of this anime follows these kids' journey as they discover things about themselves. They discover what love is. There's lots of little stuff along the way where they're discovering very basic things that they're not taught at all from these supposed adults. Now, there's lots of story, and there's lots of backstory and stuff, and things happen that explain why they're not taught a lot of this stuff, and they're really emotionally and sometimes a lot of the time physically abused as well, and so they go through a lot of these lots of very horrific experiences, and so it's amazing that these kids appear as adjusted as they do, considering all the crap they have to go through. Anyway, it's interesting. It's interesting. Hero is a very likable character because that despite all of the traumas that they all experience, Hero remains compassionate, and he super cares about his team, and he worries about their well-being, and a lot of the other kids are not that way. Now, maybe not so much in Hero and his group, but all the other kids are like that. This group is the exception rather than the rule, where they're not, these kids are the exception where they care about one another, and even then, some of them care about one another more than other ones, but that's basically Hero. He's likable, he's nice, he's like the alpha main. Moving on to our next super, head honcho main character, we move on to Zero Two, the waifu. So Zero Two is Hero's significant other, And she is the other, I would say, alpha main character. She has, I feel like, the same level of importance as Hero does, where a lot of the anime revolves around her and her specific reputation. Because as you can see by her super cool appearance with her cool double horns and stuff, there's a lot of backstory that revolves around Zero Two and her being supposedly a partner killer and lots of things. But she's a really, really cool character, because I think especially with her backstory that you're very invested, because you want to know why she is the way she is, especially because, I mean, not only is she very attractive, obviously, but her personality is very, very cool, and just the way that she's wired, and you want to know why she is the way that she is. And it's cool because her and Hero are attached at the hip, and very early on. Now, as the farther it goes, the deeper the bond gets, and its nature changes to be even better than it was, and, you know, obviously it evolves and changes as they evolve and change, but right away there is definitely a connection, and it's very, very cool because the connection is undeniable right away, even though there's other characters that have a crush on Hero that don't have the same level of connection, and it is noticeable. It is noticeable. And so Zero Two and Hero, for me, they make one of the best couples in most any anime I've seen, because of the depth that they care about each other, and because of the ending. And we're not in the spoiler section, if I even have it for this review, because it's a sometimes section, and so I'm not going to spoil anything, but their relationship is very cool, and I definitely think that they are one of the coolest couples in all of anime, and they are very, very cool. And Zero Two can be certainly heartless. She can certainly have that very cruel side of her. And there's a lot about her that definitely can have that cruel side to it. But she finds a way to overcome despite what maybe her natural tendencies are, or what her natural fears are. And her backstory is so stinking cool that it is a very, very exciting thing to see her backstory develop, and to kind of be along for that whole ride. Anyway, I keep hearing like little noises, and I realize that, you know, houses make noises, but I keep feeling like that I'm always have this fear that, like, one of my, I say roommates, but they're not my roommates. They're my landlord and their family are going to come in for some reason, and they're just going to hear me or talking to myself yapping or whatever, when I'm not really talking to myself, because obviously people are going to watch this, right? You guys are watching this. So if you're here now, then I'm obviously not talking to myself. But, you know, there's always that little fear that someone's going to walk in and be like, you know, hi, excuse me? But like, well, hi, what are you doing? Please go away. Anyway, it's an irrational fear. Just, you can ignore me. But that's basically Zero Two in a nutshell. She's very, very attached to Hero, and their relationship is very cool. At first, she's very, very uncaring about anyone else in the group other than Hero, but after a certain point, she does care, and that is super cool. But for quite a long time, it's Zero Two and Hero against the world, and she doesn't like anyone else, and I was okay with that too. But eventually, even that does change, and that is very cool as well. Anyway, so that's basically Zero Two. So then we can we're just gonna go down the list. We're not gonna hit in any particular order, but we're just gonna kind of hop down the list. So, moving on to the next main character, we have Ichigo. So Ichigo, I've only ever heard that tied to Ichigo from Bleach, and so for me, I had to get used to that being a girl, but Ichigo is a girl in this, and not that I'm saying it's a girl or boy name, it's just the name that I associated it with. But anyway, we have Ichigo. So Ichigo is actually the leader of this particular little squad of kids. She is actually the leader and the boss, and so she is a very, very good leader. I mean, honestly, she really fills her role very, very well. And it's interesting because throughout battle that she's the one that's in command, but I really feel for Ichigo, because she's the one that has to wrangle all these kids when none of them are taught like so much about a lot of things, and so a lot of them are just left like, you know, just left to hang on their own, figure out their own issues, and so you feel really bad for them, and especially with Ichigo, because she's in the role of leader and she has to manage all these kids. So Ichigo has a crush on Hero, and based upon the fact that Zero Two exists, you know that doesn't work out. However, and that doesn't feel like a spoiler to me, that only a couple of, like, episode 1 or 2, and you would know the same thing. But anyway, Anyway, but Ichigo is a very likable character because you really feel for her that as she tries to lead this little band of kids, and she's a very likable character. She really does care for the group, and she genuinely wants, for the most part, what's best for them. Sometimes her judgment is clouded because she wants to do what she thinks is right, even when it's not, or whatever. But she's doing the best she can, and keep in mind, she's just a kid. So considering she's just a kid, it's amazing how well she does at her role in command. And it's very, very cool. So it occurs to me just now that that I probably should describe them very briefly, what they look like, very briefly, just so you know who's who, just in case I didn't label it very well. So really quick, let's backtrack. Hero, there's very few guys in the anime. I mean, I guess that there isn't very few. There's actually technically more guys than girls. I mean, well, actually, I guess not. I guess there's an even split. But Hero is the only dark-haired guy, so he's probably in the center of whatever art that you're staring at the moment. And assuming I was able to find art, which I probably was, it's very popular. But anyway, he's the main dark-haired guy. He looks a lot like the main dude from Sword Art Online. But he's not nearly as cool, no offense to Hero, but he's not nearly as cool as the main dude from Sword Art Online, whatever his name was, whose name escapes me. I almost had it just for a second. But anyway, 02, she's the pink-haired girl with the horns. Obviously, she's pretty recognizable. And she's popular for a lot of people, because a lot of people know who 02 is because of how popular and how beautiful she is. Anyway, and now Ichigo, she is the dark-haired girl. She has a clip in her hair. She is dark-haired, but there is another dark-haired girl, but her color is a little bit lighter. And she has a clip in her hair, and she does not wear glasses. So that's Ichigo. Anyway, but as far as Ichigo's character, she does feel a lot more like a sister to Hero and a lot of the other, and she feels like the big sister role as far as leading. I mean, she obviously is leader, but she does fill that big sister role, in my opinion, is what she felt like to me, and I super felt for her having to lead this group of kids. Anyway, and so that is basically Ichigo, so that is Ichigo. I'm trying to figure out who to hit next. Well, I guess we can hit her partner. So next we move on to Goro. Goro is the, what is that, blonde? Orange? It's like, he's like the blonde-haired character. I guess we'll say blonde. He wears glasses, and there's another shorter guy that does not wear glasses. That's not him. He is the taller of one. So Goro is interesting because he's actually Hiro's best friend as far as like the guy friends go. He is Hiro's best friend. Him and all these kids have, for the most part, have been together since they were very, very, very little. But especially Goro, Ichigo, and Hiro were all kind of attached at the hip. So obviously the mechas, the FranXX, are piloted in boy-girl pairs. Well, Goro is actually Ichigo's partner. So and Goro is a great character because the dude is often like he's a lot quieter than a lot of the other guys are, but he obviously does care, and he definitely has that supportive role where he's really good at backing up Ichigo with what she needs and when she needs it, and he's really good about helping wrangle this little group of chickens as they're he's really good about helping Ichigo kind of keep order and being that kind of quieter supportive role. Now there is plot that develops between characters, which includes Goro, and I'm not going to get super deep into anything because I feel like we're pushing spoiler territory if I do. So I'm going to leave a lot of things unsaid. There's a lot of the people I'm going to skim over because I don't want to reveal plot about them too much. And so that's one of those things that we're kind of going to skim over it a little bit because I don't want to get too much into it. Anyway. But Goro is a very likable character because he's, the quieter, supportive one. He definitely has a lot more mature side to him. A lot of the other guys feel very young and very much like kids, a couple in particular. But Goro definitely feels like he has that much more mature, older brother side to him, which is very likable. And you super feel for him because he is the quiet friend, and I have been that friend before, and it kind of hurts. Not going to lie, kind of hurts. Anyway, moving on. So now at this point, we're not going to hit any particular order. I'm just going to go down the list after this point. Next we have Futoshi. Futoshi is and I don't want to be mean, but he is the slightly overweight guy, and that is Futoshi. So Futoshi is another likable character. All the characters are likable, but some of them are more likable than others. Futoshi was very cool, and he has a hardcore crush on one of the girl characters, and he has a hardcore crush on her, and you definitely have been in his shoes before, but he's another likable character. He kind of lacks in confidence, I feel like, but it's not super bad, but like I feel like that it was definitely present. But, I mean, really, that there's a lot of these kids that they don't feel like that there's an insane amount of plot to them. It feels like that, I mean, like, there's a couple of them. I feel like if anyone didn't get a super big hand dealt in the plot department, it was Futoshi. Because he's there and he is likable, and you do really feel bad for him, because he's just kind of the, you know, the pudgy, overweight kid, and it's like, you know, that's kind of his thing, right? You're just like, why? Like, why can't he get more plot than that? But he is super likable, and he does super care about the group and everything, and he does contribute to the atmosphere, so I don't want to say he's a waste or anything, but it does feel like that he's not a very in-depth character, it doesn't feel like. Anyway, so moving on to the next character, we have Ikuno. So Ikuno is the character that looks similar to Ichigo, but Ikuno wears glasses, and she has the longer hair, and I believe her hair is darker, but I am colorblind, so it's a little hard to tell. So Ikuno is very cool because she's very much my favorite, like, looking archetype, if that's the right word, in a lot of anime. That, you know, long, darker, purple, bluish type of hair, you know, glasses, sometimes not. That's very much my specific type, and so for me, Ikuno was very much, my ears perked up. But Ikuno is a very cool character because she is one of the quietest ones, and she has actually some interesting plot points that develop with her, and there's lots of issues that this anime tackles in general, and there are some specific issues that I'm not going to reveal for Ikuno that I felt like the anime was very tasteful on how it handled, and I felt like that it gave her a fair shake when a lot of other animes probably would have swept it under the rug. And so there is lots of little plot and little things that develop with characters like Ikuno that I super love, lots of issues that the anime handles, particularly that it tackles, that it did it in a very tasteful way. So definite kudos to that. But Ikuno is a very cool character, one of the quieter ones, and you definitely gotta respect her for it, especially after her particular little reveal gets revealed. She is very, very likable. So you do feel bad for her for a long time because her aptitude as a pilot, you know, as one half of the piloting team, is not very good. But it's definitely because of like specific situations with her, rather than any ability she really may or may not have. So you feel bad for her. You always feel like that she's getting that she's under lots of stress, even though not a lot of it's said or anything. But you always get the feeling that there's a lot going on internally with Ikuno, and it was very interesting. Moving on to our next character, we have Kokoro. So Kokoro is a very pretty character. She has like the long, I don't even know, kind of wavy hair, but it's like a very lighter color. It's almost, I don't know, like bleach blonde, but not really, you know. But she has longer hair. So Kokoro is a very cool character. There's actually quite a bit of plot that revolves around her. But she's really cool because she's one of the most genuine, caring characters, I think, out of the whole group. A lot of the characters tend to butt heads and are rough around the edges with each other. Like Ikuno butts heads with another certain character, and Miku and Zorome are constantly fighting, and you know, and I'll get to the characters I just talked about. But there is lots of characters that tend to butt heads with each other, and a lot of the characters that even like super chill ones have a breaking point, and they all hit it at one point or another where they have a breaking point where they don't handle things well. And it's one of the big points of the anime, I think, is showing them develop as they grow up, and as they do and as they fight all the time, and as they are not told, they're not taught so many basic things, that there's lots of them have a breaking point. Well, Kokoro is a very cool character because she's one of the most genuinely caring characters out of the whole group, where she genuinely is one of the most likely ones to put an arm around somebody, and you know, or ask if someone's doing okay or whatever. That is Kokoro is that caring center that a lot of the other characters don't naturally do, I don't think. And so she was a very lovable character, and there's a lot of plot, especially later on in the last half that is given to her, and lots of things develop with her. So I can't get too deeply into her without revealing plot, so we're not going to get into it. But she's a very likable character. Definitely has that. You know, she's one of the most caring characters in the group, and it was noticeable and very appreciated because having a calm voice in the midst of all these crazy kids was a nice breath of fresh air. Moving on to our next character, we have Miku. So Miku is the girl with the twin tails. Miku is an interesting character. She is definitely the female Zorome, and you'll meet Zorome in a minute. But Miku is an interesting character. She definitely has that more louder, more obnoxious side to her, but she's not as nearly as obnoxious as Zorome is, and again, we'll talk about him in a minute. But Miku is an interesting character. She definitely feels to me the youngest out of all of them. I don't know if she is or not, but she definitely feels the least mature and the youngest to me. I mean, really, it's her and Zorome, but we'll get to him in a minute. But there's not too much to say. I don't know. She was one of my least liked characters because she was one of the ones that was always fighting with Zorome, and she's okay, but she is given plot and things do develop, and she is more likable, especially as things go on. But she definitely has that tsundere vibe that a lot of that, she was given the tsundere more or less archetype. And I don't know, and there's some tsunderes that can pull it off, and it's fine that you're like, oh, it's fine, they're still likable, but Miku didn't do it in a way that was super likable. That she's more just annoying to me. So she was on a character list of my lower end of liked characters. And so there's not too much else to say. But I don't know. She's kind of obnoxious, has the tsundere vibe, but not in like a lovable way. And so for me, she's okay. Moving on to our next character, we have Mitsuru. So Mitsuru is another really interesting character. He goes from A to B a long way, and it's actually really interesting. So Mitsuru has the slicked back, I'm like a future bad guy look going on. Slicked back hair, I mean. I'm a future bad guy look going on. Now, he doesn't turn into a bad guy. I'm just saying that the archetype, the look is there. But Mitsuru at first is a jerk. He's a jerk a long time, and there's very little gets developed with him, and very little happens until a certain point. And then after a certain point, a large amount of plot develops with him, and he does a very large 180. Now, once his plot gets revealed, and it's revealed why he acts the way he does, then suddenly he's actually really likable, and you actually understand where he's coming from. And then later on, after a lot is developed with him, he's actually very likable, and then you really enjoy it. But for him, he was actually one of the fun characters to watch, because you saw him early on when he was such a jerk, and he was so aloof of it all, and he was so not interested in bonding, or being in the group, or just being a part of the whole thing. He was very much had that look of, I can't be bothered, it's all such a pain. But after his plot happens and his backstory happens, he's actually very likable, and he's a really cool character, and it's interesting. He has beef with some certain characters in the group, but that's part of the stuff that gets, resolved, and it was a really good time. So keep your eyes peeled for Mitsuru, because it's a very interesting story arc. So our last main character is Zorome. So Zorome is the short, I think he's the shortest, but Zorome is the, orange-haired kid that looks like he's obnoxious as he is. So Zorome is probably my least liked character. He's obnoxious, he's loud, he very much has the Miku vibe of going tsundere, but as a guy, but even less likable than Miku. He's always, if there's anyone that's going to cause a fight or say something hurtful or whatever, it's Zorome. So he's like the one that is there to rock the boat and make sure the drama is always high enough or where the drama needs to be. And for me, he's my least liked character. I found him very young, very juvenile, very annoying, and there's lots of times when he would just come unhinged about something where everyone else is like, whoa, Zorome, calm down. He very much had the I'm a young brat kid attitude going on a long time, and it was not very likable. Even up until the end, after enough time, plot develops with him, and he's more likable, he is less annoying, but it's always present. It's always present. It's never totally gone, and even up until the very end, and it's never totally gone, and it's noticeable, and I found him very grating, and I did not like him. But that's it. There is other supporting characters, but that is the very large. That is our large main character group list, and it is it's a good group of characters. It's a good group of characters, but they all are likable, and they all have, good and bad things about them. But as a group, they were all handled very well, and all the little plot points the little issues and the big issues that come up in the anime are very well handled, and the group of characters, this anime would not be anything without them. So definitely well done. Even people like Zorome are necessary, I just don't like them. But anyway, moving on to my favorite slash most hated characters. This is another one of the biased ones, but obviously my favorite character would be Zero Two. I just super love Zero Two, and anytime she was on screen, I was a happy boy. But as far as my least favorite characters, Miku and Zerome. I mean, again, you could just tell by the way I talked about them, but that's no surprise there. But that's, no surprise, and I already told you as to why. Moving on to our animation and music. How did it look and sound? So, it was a very visually stunning anime. It was very, very visually pretty. It wasn't like one of the most jaw-dropping, life-changing experiences, but it's in the upper echelon of really great. It was very, very pretty to look and sound. I feel like that the music was good. It was nothing life-changing. It was nothing life-changing or super crazy, or I wasn't a standout of the anime. But the music did its. I feel like that there was some music and it did do its job. The animation was very, very good. And it was very top-notch, and it was definitely very well put together. But that's basically it. So, moving on to our final rating and recommendation. So, I'm going to give this one a 5 out of 5. Very good. This anime made no mistakes worth noting, and is definitely worth a buy. So, as far as recommendation goes, I definitely recommend it. 5 out of 5. So, there is reasons why it did not get a 6 out of 5, and there will be a very brief spoiler section that is not currently. I will warn you before we actually talk about it. But as far as recommended go, it definitely feels like it's a 5 out of 5. That I did have to dock it a little bit from a 6 out of 5, so that's the reason it's sitting on a 5 out of 5. But it's not enough to give it a negative score for any reason. So, but yeah, it is very, very good, and I cannot help but recommend you check it out. There is a spoiler section, but I'm not even in the spoilers, I'm not going to get into some super heavy territory. So I guess in order to recommend it and to tell you why it got the score it did, I actually have to talk about a few spoilers. And so it's nothing super crazy, but if you want to leave, now is your opportunity to do so. And even then, I'm not going to go very deeply into why. I'm just going to very briefly touch on why it got a 5 out of 5 over a 6 out of 5. And then, and so I'm just going to wait just a moment, just stalling here. Okay, so now, if you're still here and you're still listening, it's because you want to hear the spoilers. So, I did have to dock it from a 6 out of 5 because the ending is kind of bittersweet. I'm not going to, even in the spoiler section, I'm not going to get into all the details. There's a lot of heavy plot that goes in here, but it's a very heavy emotional anime. There's lots of emotions flying around, and the feels are real. And especially when it comes to the ending half, and then especially the very, very end. It's very feels heavy, and it does end well, but there's lots of plot, and I'm not going to explain as to why, but Hero and Zero Two get separated from the group, and they go off and do this thing where they never, ever return. And it sounds that sounds very depressing, but it does end well. They do get their happily ever after. They get reincarnated, and they're gonna meet again, and their love reblooms and starts over, right? So if you're both gonna go die, then you getting reincarnated to fall in love again is like the next best thing, right? So it gets a 5 out of 5 over a 6 out of 5 because the Hero and Zero Two aren't going to see their group and their friends again, and that's kind of sad. And that's kind of sad. And there is some plot that develops between Kokoro, Futoshi, and Mitsuru, and I'm not going to get into it even in the spoiler section here. But there is it is kind of sad. Futoshi gets stiffed, and what develops here, and I felt bad for him, and I felt like that because he cared for so long, and it was just such a sad thing, and so that's kind of disappointing. It kind of gets a little bit of a dock, but not enough to actually dock it from anything less than a 5 out of 5, because Mitsuru and Kokoro are so good together, so it's not like it's bad or anything, but so I don't know. So but mostly the biggest thing is the ending, the Hui and Dewey getting reincarnated. At least they have each other, and that's the reason why it gets a 5 out of 5, but not enough for me to call it a favorite of mine because of that, and because it does have that very feels heavy, very, very intensive watch. So, and that's basically it, everybody. So, if you are still around, then thank you all so much for watching. And that is it for Darling in the Franxx. Very good anime. Cannot help but recommend you go check it out. This was, I feel like, a very popular one, and the hype was well deserved. So, definitely go give it a watch. Anyway, that is going to call for this one. Thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed the content today, and we will talk to you guys later.